Hi, I'm Mark Scherer. I'm the CEO and founder of Encompass Life and the host of the Encompassing Life Podcast. And today I have the pleasure of having Vanessa Cafiero on the call, and she's from Long Island. And I read her resume or her application for coming on here, and this lady is a ball of energy and has, I believe, she has one speed or two speeds: go and stop, and that's it. Her go is full on. And so she's here to share a little bit about her story and how she's turned her own self healing into a very successful business. So, Vanessa, I'm so glad to have you on the show, and it's beautiful talking with you. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me, Mark. I really appreciate being here with you.
You're welcome. And just to let you guys know, for those of you who are looking on, Vanessa is 64. No, 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 she's excuse me. I'm messing with you. She's 39, but she looks like she's about 24, 25. So looking really great, Vanessa. Um, Tell us a little bit about how you got started in the health industry.
It starts, when I was really young, I was a kid who grew up with a lot of anxiety and chronic pain. By the time I was a teenager, I was in and out of the chiropractor 3 times a week. And I was actually told by a chiropractor that if I didn't have spine surgery for my scoliosis, I'd be hunched over by the time I was in my early 20s. And I was pretty lucky. My parents weren't super holistic, but they were open-minded with stuff. So they'd send me for a massage. My dad was into martial arts, so I got into yoga pretty young, not from the spiritual perspective of it, but just to do some stretching. And I was one of those like teenagers that was like unhappy and didn't feel too good. And, in retrospect now, I think that's typical for a lot of people, but was always chasing symptoms. I was allergic to everything, seasonal allergies all year round, chronic pain. And I was looking for different solutions. So I got my first massage. I was probably 14 or 15 years old. And, it was like something that helped a little bit more than the chiropractor. And I think I was just always drawn to a more natural solution. I was afraid of doctors, wherever that came from. And then fast forward a little bit later, I decided to go to massage therapy school when I was 20. It was one of those spontaneous whims. I would love to say that I wanted to help and heal people, but I was bartending, living in Brooklyn. I saw myself as a writer and an artist and thought that I would have a nice side job doing massage working out of my house. And when I went to massage school, the first day they made us learn how to energetically be with each other before we were allowed to touch each other. And that was my first real like taste of energy work. And that sounded a little esoteric to me at the time. By the time I got through massage school, I was having people touch me and crying and having all of these repressed emotions coming out and trying to figure out what that meant. And a girlfriend that I met up there was a yoga teacher, and I really started like going deeper into yoga. So I decided I was never going to teach yoga, but I got home from massage school and I did a yoga teacher training. I was like, I'm going to learn more about this. We were doing the pranayama and the breath work, and I saw that my anxiety and my anxiousness and all of the feelings that I wasn't managing as well seemed to be a bit more even keel. So I just did a training to learn more. Long story short, I sprained my ankle 3 times in a 7 month yoga teacher training. And I had a mentor that was like, Vanessa, what the hell's wrong with you? She'd be like, you need to slow down, girl. The second time I sprained my ankle, she's like, girl, you need to slow down. Third time, she's like, slow the F down. And I finally get through the yoga teacher training. I graduated on a Sunday. I picked up my first yoga class on a Thursday. Now I want to teach the stuff because I don't slow down. Taught my first yoga class, went to go do an in-home massage, and that night I was in a severe car accident. And it was, so I mentioned the car accident. I incurred, I drove a small Scion TC. I got T-boned by a Dodge Durango full of 18-year-old girls on Memorial Day weekend. So my car was completely totaled. I had one of those experiences where I saw my dead body outside of myself hovering over
Wow. How
myself.
many years ago was that?
I was
Eight,
2009, 2009.
2009. And the world's going through a lot of changes at that time as well. Man, that was a pivotal time in a lot of people's lives.
Yeah. And I incurred three traumatic brain injuries. So I remember in retrospect being in the ambulance. I thought I was abducted by aliens. I remember that vividly. I remember being restrained and then waking up in the hospital. And I actually wrote this. I just published a book recently that or an ebook. I woke up in the hospital. I'm like scared as all hell. I'm already more natural minded. And the only thing they were going to give me was morphine. And I remember vividly pleading, please don't give me morphine because I didn't want to like lose my consciousness. I was already scared. And they said the doctor signed out for the night and he only signed off on morphine. So it was morphine or nothing. They wouldn't give me a Tylenol. I'm one of those. I got 39 stitches to my face. You can't see anything, but 39 stitches to my
Wow.
face with no painkillers because the doctors wouldn't give me anything other than morphine. After the 39 stitches, I'm not that good. I begged for the morphine. I was like, give me anything. I don't care. And I was referred to a neurologist who basically told me I was going to have a permanent learning disability. I had frontal lobe brain damage, parietal lobe, and my corpus callosum, which is the interplay between the left and right hemispheres of your brain. I had speech aphasia. I couldn't walk in a straight line and I had no short-term memory. And I went from being someone who would meditate and like, was more of a quiet person to like literally cursing at squirrels. I mean, I was like unhinged. I tell people, you saw One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I was watching myself knowing I didn't feel that way, but I was so reactive and I couldn't help it. I was like hysterical crying, screaming at people, and then like seeing this part of myself being like, this isn't who you are. And honestly, I was so lucky that I learned about meditation before this that I was like, oh my God, I'm watching myself be crazy, but I can't help myself being crazy.
Wow. What a story.
Yeah. And the big piece was what I did for stress management when I did my yoga teacher training. Physical yoga asana is what I did to chill out. So I did like upbeat Ashtanga classes. I take several classes a week. And I had so much cerebral hemorrhaging that I was not allowed to put my head below my heart. I wasn't allowed to get my heart rate up. I was finishing my college degree in exercise science. I had to drop out of school because I couldn't take any of my fitness classes. And I told people like everything I would do for stress management was either exercise or physical yoga. I couldn't do it. And then I had a neurologist tell me that I had to go to a psychiatrist. She wanted to put me on depression medication. And I remember telling her, I'm like, would you not be depressed? I had 39 stitches to my face. I was stuttering my speech. I'm like, this isn't a chemical imbalance. This is like, I should be sad, asshole. Mind my French, I'm from New York. And I just thought, like, I literally said, I was like, if I could only sit and do nothing. And I say, thank God I wasn't that good of a yogi yet because my ego was so huge. I had a 4.0 average in college, and someone was going to tell me I was going to be stupid. So my whole identity was wrapped around being smart. And I didn't remember anything. I remember the doctor, I'm not going to say his name. I'm sure he's a great neurologist, but to me at the time, he was the devil. And he told me I was going to have a permanent disability, and my life's mission became proving this man wrong. So I was like, if I could only sit and do nothing, I'm going to be the best sit and do nothing that's ever happened. And I signed up for a 10-day Vipassana retreat. So I
Oh
did
my gosh.
Buddhist insight meditation.
Oh
And
my
then I
gosh.
learned I was a psychopath. And the big piece, I know, long story short, in the 10 days, you can't even make eye contact with people. You were never more than 2.5 hours without a break, but you're literally sitting still for 10.5 hours a day. You can't stretch, you can't do anything, you don't make eye contact, you don't speak to anybody. And what I really noticed in that time was I'd be sitting and I'd have shoulder pain and I'd have back pain, but then I'd have hip pain. But then my hip pain would go away and I'd have neck pain. Then I'd feel a moment of pleasure, notice that I felt good for a second, and then everything was doom and gloom. In 10 days, I convinced myself my parents died. I had all these stories about everything. And when you finally speak to people again, the big take home for me was all of my pain and suffering was coming from my mind. I felt good. It was because my mind changed. I felt crazy. It was because my mind shifted. And people are like, you'll be enlightened after that. I was like, no, I just realized how crazy I am in like, a different way. And I was
Yeah.
like, wow, I saw physical pain shift in my body, not physically moving, for hours at a time. And I'm like, this is telling me something. The
Yeah.
mind is what's changing your experience of the world. And I mean, I was 22 or 23 when I had this epiphany, and that totally changed the trajectory of my life. I was like,
Wow.
the mind changes everything. I need to
Yeah.
learn to work with this thing.
Have you ever? read a book called The Holographic Universe by any chance?
You know what? I have heard of that, but I have not read that one. I'm writing that down. The holographic universe.
Yeah, I think it's Talbert. I can't remember his first name. But they did a case study on a person with multiple personality disorder, and one personality they're diabetic, and one personality they wear glasses, and one personality they have a mole on the side of their face.
Hmm.
And they'll change personality, the mole disappear. They change personality, they don't require glasses. They change personality, they don't require insulin. And so what's I remember reading the book. I go, okay, so what is a personality? And basically, it's a conversation you have with yourself about yourself. Or for me, the conversation I have with myself about myself and about life. And if all those conversations, which to me, it also goes back to scripture. By your words, you're justified. By your words, you're condemned. Life is death, and this is the power of the tongue. So, how you speak to yourself, whatever you're doing, is producing those results in your body. And you can make yourself sick. You can make yourself well in an instant.
And I say this without getting too sciencey. It's like I didn't get this at the time, and you're like positive thinking. But having studied, I have a bachelor's in exercise physiology. I have a bachelor's and master's in Chinese medicine, which you have to study all of the Western medicine like methodology. I could give you a physical like your primary care physician, even though that's not my methodology. But the reticular activating system is this area in your brain that basically sets you up for confirmation bias. Your hormones, everything that changes all of the processes in your body is controlled by your nervous system. And our bodies are literally wired for confirmation bias. So if we, I think about that neurologist, he was telling me what he believed. I would say 9 out of 10 people believe a doctor before they believe the outcome that they want to have. And then they're always right. I did a TEDx talk on how a neurologist told me I'd have a permanent speech delay. And the reality is, if I believed him, if I wasn't this, arrogant, 20 something year
Yeah.
old who needed to know everything, my not fear or my concern for other people is they would believe that.
Yep.
And I use this, I write this in the book that I wrote, doctors who study the brain that should, in my opinion, if you understand neuroscience, you should never tell someone they have 6 months to live. You
Yep.
should actually never give someone a negative prognosis. There's all about being proactive and treating people. But if there's a belief system around it, the body will always
Right.
match what it believes.
Yep. Even the placebo effect. The
Totally.
pharmaceuticals, if you test them against placebos, are virtually the same efficacy. So it's really, you know, what's what our body can produce, the chemical our body can produce, can heal us or like I say, make us sick. So
In the talk I did, I actually did a little bit about placebos. There was a study where they found with Parkinson's, there was the drug, the inexpensive placebo, and then the expensive placebo. And the expensive sugar pill actually did better than the inexpensive one, which even shows us how we have these sub and unconscious beliefs
right,
around certain things.
a value.
More expensive sugar pill work better. It's like go figure.
Right. Amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. So when you had your brain injury back in, you said 2009,
Yes.
and how long did it take you to recover from that?
Honestly, so I was finishing my degree in exercise science because my Italian parents said, if you don't get a degree, we're writing you out of our will. So I was a massage therapist. I was like going to art school for creative writing. I was like, let me just finish and get a degree. Maybe I'll go into physical therapy one day. And so I finished up school. That was in 2009. I like I lost my train of thought. I wasn't able to read a book at the time. And thank God I already knew the stuff that I was doing. It took me probably over a year before I was able to read the words out of a book, but I had no reading comprehension for probably about a year and a half. I still had some neurological things like I'm super noise sensitive. I was a kid who would read 1,000-page book in 2 nights when I was younger. Now it would probably take me, maybe I'm just older and I have more stuff on my mind. Now I read a little bit slower, but I'd say probably a year and a half, no one can tell anything was going on. It was probably the better part of a decade where a lot of like the little things that I could cover up that no one would notice, like, you know what I mean? Like, were
Right, right.
totally gone. There's, still, and it's like interesting. And I think this is like how the brain works too. I thought like I'm noise sensitive because I had brain damage. I'm like, maybe I'm just more tuned in because I meditate a lot now. Like I don't even have a TV at my house because I'm like, I just don't want to hear extra
Right.
noise. So I'm like, is that like brain damage or is that just me becoming someone who's living more of a natural life?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah, it was probably the better part of a year because before I could read with comprehension, it took me a while to get motor skills back, but I would say I've made a complete recovery. I function decently in society.
Yeah, yeah.
Your sister teases I'm still a little weird, but I think that's
Gotcha.
a good thing,
Well,
you know?
you said you also said you moved into like a brand new or a new 6,200 square foot building. You started out in a couple of offices as a massage therapist, and I guess building your practice up and evolving it over time. And so you went from, I think we said, two offices working with somebody.
No, my first location was just under 2,000 square feet. It was me. I was renting a place. It was two yoga studios and I had two treatment rooms. I was a massage therapist and I hired a couple of extra people. I met my business partner Jen Nelson in 2014. She was a massage therapist in the same town and she ended up buying into Emerge. And then when we were together as partners, we were looking to buy a second location or open a second location, and I found this building. It was a grocery store, and we completely renovated the grocery store and we turned it into a state-of-the-art wellness center. So we have two studios now, seven treatment rooms. We have a scalar energy room. We do sound therapy, Chinese medicine, yoga, fitness, you name it. We have a sauna. So a lot of more of like a full integrative wellness center.
So tell me about the scalar energy room. I've done some here in Florida. I've been to a couple here in
Have
Florida.
you heard of the EE system?
I choose to know. Is it like with the TV, you have the monitors
Yes,
and doing all type of geometric shapes and stuff on them, and then also sounds.
a little bit different. So I throw another friend of mine. I met this woman, Dr. Sandra Rose Michael. She's the creator of the energy enhancement system. And she was doing a lot of work back in the 70s, 80s, like kind of like Tesla based scalar frequency. I'm not saying it's Rife technology, it's different, that's its own thing, but harnessing the scalar energy, those 5D frequencies to help like cellular regeneration. So I met her through a friend over COVID. I went to a seminar and I ended up getting the system in Emerge. It recently has blown up more because, like viral stuff and social media and all of that. But I literally have a room with 10 gravity chairs and people go into the room and they heal. It's amazing. I don't want to put out any claims as a practitioner who's in the Western world as well with insurance. I'm not making any claims, but I can tell you what I've seen. Like I do treat patients with MS and Parkinson's and autoimmune. And I've seen that, especially working with acupuncture, because acupuncture targets the nervous system. When my patients were going into the EE system in conjunction with other treatments, they were reporting that the benefits of their treatments were lasting longer. My uncle has Parkinson's and he's like, it's been one of the best things. It's helped with the tremors, help with sleeping at night. And it's like literally you go into this room and it gets you into a place inside of yourself of deep healing where it's like real deep rest and that's where the body heals itself.
Right, right, right. Have you heard of body electronics by any chance?
It sounds vaguely familiar. I can't say that I know definitely of the technology, but I think it's like all in that same realm.
It's, now it's this is where we're holding acupressure points, sustained acupressure for maybe an hour or two with five or six people holding acupressure points, and it
That is
brings
not what I was thinking of. That's
okay,
different. Yeah.
yeah, and it brings up lineage and experiential traumas. And so the first session reboots the endocrine system. The second session we do is called colon electronics, and in colon electronics, it reboosts the person's nervous system. A lot of kids weren't raised with a lot of time in arms, and
Mhm.
if you don't have that time in arms, the person's nervous system doesn't hook up properly. Like they don't trust their gut, they don't trust life, and they're in a state of fight or flight. So the second session will integrate that person's nervous system as if they were raised with and cherished and loved and held and nurtured. The next session is spinal electronics, where if there's any type of calcium deposits on the back or in the neck, or you ever seen like those golf egg type of things on people's back, Like
Yeah.
all that stuff will melt off, and they'll return movement to their spine, and they'll start to feel supported by the universe. And then the fourth session is called cranial electronics. Are you familiar with? I'm sure you're familiar with the sphenoid bone.
Yeah, I practice craniosacral therapy. I've done many courses through Upledger.
This is another different than that.
Yeah, but so what I'm saying is I'm very, yeah, I'm aware of the cranial system, the sphenoid, and
Yeah,
all.
so we put the sphenoid back in place, and the roof of the mouth will move up between maybe a quarter of an inch to maybe three-quarters of an inch or so, and the skull usually changes by about an inch from the tip of the chin to the top of the fontanelle to about a half an inch from temple to temple, and the eyes will come up and come out,
That's incredible.
and takes about 10 minutes,
Benefits.
and all of a sudden, when somebody's living in a bunch of complaints, the skull contraction fuses. So when this process occurs, like the complaints start to fall off, and the person's skull will begin to move again. It moves cerebral spinal fluid up and down the spine.
I might have to make my next business trip to Texas.
Well, we're going to be in Minnesota in September doing this class.
All right, we're gonna have to. I told you we're friends.
I
We're gonna
know.
just
I tell you,
meet up.
yep, yep,
That's so fascinating.
and we,
It's fascinating, and it makes sense.
yep, and you have an issue with speaking when you had your brain injury. I had a speech impediment as a kid. If I said a word incorrectly, I would get hit or yelled at. So I stuttered for 50 years, and I, for me to get up in front of a group to speak, I was literally sweat through a shirt to speak for 3 minutes. So with this system, I went from a stutterer to clear speech in under 10 minutes.
That's incredible, and I believe it.
Yeah, it's different.
We might
It,
be shaking hands in September, Mark.
that'd be great.
I would
I
love
love
that.
it. Look forward to meeting you. You got a lot of energy, a lot of energy. So your facility now, you have massage therapists, and do you only do traditional massage, or you do? You said you do craniosacral work as well. Do you
So
do?
I'm a massage therapist since 2007, but I primarily treat acupuncture. I have a handful of patients that I see. I call it like more like somato-emotional integration. So,
Right,
I mean, I have so many tools, but I'm not doing traditional table massage. A lot of times I work with a tie mat on the floor, and I'll bring people, if you're familiar with even myofascial release and fascial unwinding.
right,
So it'll be more of like an unwinding process that I'll bring people through. I do a lot of breath work with clients as well, more somatic breath work. It
right,
depends on what someone needs. I
right.
have 7 or 8 massage therapists that work with me. My business partner is also a massage therapist and acupuncturist, and we have our other 2 full-time acupuncturists are also body workers. But in my personal practice right now, I only see people one-on-one for more of somato-emotional integration, either real trauma or like chronic pain and injuries.
Right.
You know, and it's never like a massage or a cranial sacral session. Like they're coming in with like a specific chief complaint, and then we just curate a session to meet them where they are.
Awesome. Guided by spirit.
All the time. That's the way
Always. Yep.
I live.
Yep. Awesome. And so and what else do you do? Like Reiki or any of that stuff in there too? You have Reiki practitioners?
When I went to massage school when I was 20, I tease, I was a Reiki master at 20. I wasn't even, paying my own bills yet. It probably took me about a decade before I offered my first Reiki training. So I'm a Reiki master, and I teach the yoga teacher trainings here as well. And most of my staff have done Reiki with me. So there is a big thread of approaching everything that we do from an energetic perspective, from
Gotcha.
traditional modalities. We have some like real crazy biohacking technologies. Most of the staff here is coming from an energetic perspective in the way that they address clients.
Gotcha. So you said your business model, when I read your application, is very different. So do you have like a membership type of a model? Is that what I got from that?
We have a la carte. Anyone can drop in for anything, and we do have membership tiers. So if people are coming for group classes, there's memberships for that. We also have a lot of therapeutic services, so we have memberships for those as well, and a combined wellness model. My big The way I would say my business is different than a lot of other spa or wellness places is I see a lot of holistic practitioners. They say they're holistic, but they're natural, which I'm all about natural, but they're operating in an allopathic mindset.
Yeah,
You go to a functional medicine practitioner, and yeah, I'd rather take 10 herbs than 10 pharmaceutical drugs, and you're still not getting to the root cause.
right.
An acupuncturist, Chinese medicine, and to me, this is all of it. You have a whole modality that tells us the root of all disease is our emotions.
Yep.
Now, I see a lot of Reiki people, they want to address the emotions and the energetic, but that to me is not enough as well because it turns
Mm,
into real physical manifestations.
yep.
So for us, any treatment that we're going to do is going to address the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual all at the same time. And that means we're doing more than just a yoga class or just a massage or
Right.
just acupuncture. So
Gotcha.
I really consider what we're doing a one-stop shop for people's holistic and integrative healthcare practices where you can get everything under one roof.
So how do your memberships work?
So I have a bunch of different tiers of memberships. They're all monthly auto pays. So
Mhm.
depending on what people are looking for.
So financially, from what to what?
So someone from 4 yoga classes a month might be paying $88 a month to I think our ultimate membership is this is terrible. I don't even know my pricing off the top of my head. Maybe like, 300 something a month that they'll get unlimited yoga, they'll get 2 private sessions which can be used for like our private sessions you can use it for acupuncture, massage, Tibetan tones, which is someone plays the Tibetan singing bowls on their body on acupuncture points. We have one-on-one yoga, we have Reiki. So you get this session and you can use it for anything you want. And then when we call them biohacking sessions, which is the tune bed, which is a bed you lay on. It's with headphones and it vibrates while playing music that recalibrates the brain. So it's a 15-minute session that like resets your nervous system. So you could use the tune bed, the EE system, which is the scalar room, red light, or sauna. So we have it where you get these credits every month and people can choose each month what they want to use their credits for to make it very
Yeah,
versatile.
that's very reasonable pricing. Very
Yeah.
reasonable for that level of service. It's amazing, actually.
I think our main membership, if I were to like price it a la carte, you're getting it for like three and change a month or just under 400, like, yeah, three and change a month. It's like well over $500-600 worth of services you're getting if you're on a membership.
Wow, that's awesome.
You know,
Who came with your model?
I, I did. It's like I'm in business. I tell everyone I'm in business in private practice since I'm 20. I opened my business when I was 25. I did everything wrong in my first decade. So you learn from your
Yeah,
mistakes
yeah, yeah,
here.
yeah,
So
yeah,
you figure it out.
yeah. Awesome. And I guess your memberships are continuing to grow.
Yes, we've just shifted our memberships recently. I changed stuff over the past year. When I first opened, we were Emerge Yoga and Wellness because we were mostly a yoga studio and I did some massage. We eventually changed our name to Integrative Wellness because I wanted to make more of like a holistic perspective. At one point, I even had a float pod. We got rid of it. We couldn't find parts of a COVID. So it's an ever evolving business.
Right.
And now we changed the name to Emerge Holistics because we're settled again. We have the acupuncture. I mean, as an acupuncturist, I'm not just treating orthopedic stuff like I would as a massage therapist. I mean, people were coming in with loss of taste and smell after COVID, and I've gotten people's taste and smell back with acupuncture. It's coming down to targeting the nervous system. So we treat everything from chronic conditions to fertility to, cold
Yeah,
and
yeah,
flu to
yeah,
digestive issues. So we really are for people that are looking for prevention and also a natural approach to their
yeah.
sick care as well. So
Right.
we,
Uh,
we've we've evolved over time.
to bring in a new way of life for people. That's awesome. Get them off the meds and all that stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Awesome. So, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
So the best way to get us is right now we still have our old website. So it's www.emergeyogawellness.com. Eventually we're going to be changing. We're in the middle of a rebranding. It'll eventually be emergeholistics.com. Our
Mhm.
email is hello@emergeholistics.com. But right now our website is emergeyogawellness.com is the best
Gotcha.
way to get us.
Awesome. And I have one question I like to end the interviews on.
Absolutely.
And my one question is, what do you love about life?
I just got the chills. I love that life is just it's beautiful. And even from someone who's had some crazy experiences, I always say that the most challenging things that we can usually get blindsided by in the moment really have the greatest gifts. I tell everybody having a traumatic brain injury is one of the best presents that I've gotten from the universe. It's changed my life. And no matter what is going on, there is something always beautiful to extract, whether it be the community that you're with other people. For me, I'm on Long Island. It's getting back into Mother Nature. It's looking up at the sunrise. There's always beauty to be felt, and it's really just such a gift to be alive.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in holy shit. I believe those words got
Yes.
I believe those words got put together for a reason. And the bigger the shit, the bigger the gold nugget you're going to find in it. So instead of trying to get away from your shit, you got to get right in the middle of it and find and start digging and find what you find.
One of my yoga teachers I did a training with, Anna Forrest, would always say, "You take that shit and you turn it into fertilizer, and that's how all the miracles grow."
Yep. Fertilizer for your new life. Yes, ma'am.
Exactly. It was such a pleasure connecting with you, Mark. I'm
You
really looking
too.
forward
You
to meeting
too.
you in
Me
person.
too. Yeah. Thank you very much for being on.
Thanks so much. Have a
You're
good one.
welcome.